Hey, happy 2025. This week, the next generation ThinkPads got leaked without track points. The end of an era. The next generation Nintendo Switch also got leaked with loads of cool new tech, and Volkswagen got itself into a whole new kind of mess.
Das Auto.
Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Nebula. Okay, for the first story of the week, we start with new leaks from Walking Cat that show new ThinkPads without track points. Specifically, these are the ThinkPad X9 in the 14 and 15-inch version, and you'll note a metallic design instead of the classic black, plus the red nipple is gone completely too. That has been part of the OG design since 1992, so it's quite a big change. Of course, we don't have official confirmation just yet as to whether this is just a one-off or a sign of things to come for all ThinkPads overall. I haven't used the track point at all on my ThinkPad, even though I used to use it on older ones, so I'm not exactly surprised, but many ThinkPad fans will be heartbroken. And beside the missing red dot, also new is this funky new side design that houses the ports and also lifts up the machine. And if that wasn't enough, last week we also got leaks of a Lenovo laptop with an under-display camera from the very same Walking Cat. That seems to work the same way as it does on my Samsung Galaxy Fold, so you get a little black circle when the camera is in use, and then that visually disappears when it is not. Also interesting is that the pill that houses the sort of depth of the camera actually sits behind the screen for the most part too, instead of extending upwards like a sort of lip as it does on other devices. I kinda like this. Add to this the rollable display concept from AvLeaks 2, and Lenovo sure looks like they'll have one of the most interesting CES weeks soon. Okay, and it's a leaky sort of week because our second story of the week is going to be Nintendo's upcoming Switch 2 getting pretty much completely leaked as well. Perhaps most interesting was this leak of the entire motherboard, which is pretty crazy. These were posted on Reddit and they tell us a lot. We first see that the heart of the board is an Nvidia chip with a visible part code, and the speculation is that it appears to confirm a chip manufactured via a 5 or 8 nanometer process at Samsung Foundry. So again, that seems to be 2, 3, maybe 4 years behind the bleeding edge, but a massive jump over the last generation. And next to that, we can see SK Hynix memory, which people have found to correspond to 2 lots of 6 GB of LPDDR5 RAM for 12 gigs in total. The previous Switch only had 4 gigs of RAM, so we're tripling memory, which again points towards massive performance improvements. And the other bit of news is that Nintendo also filed a patent at the end of the last year, which highlights AI-powered image upscaling technology, and this will likely debut on the Switch 2. So you could get something like Nvidia's version of DLSS running on a Switch running on an Nvidia chip. Pretty cool. The console is supposed to launch very soon, probably in Q1, and there are so many new gaming handhelds to be excited about. I found the Ion Neo 3 with the replaceable and swappable thumbnail stick modules a really cool idea if those actually work well. Plus there is of course also going to be SteamOS coming to third-party hardware and the new Switch. What a great time for this form factor. Okay, and for my third story of the week, Volkswagen was having the opposite of a great time with a massive data problem. Specifically at the Chaos Communication Club in Germany this year, we learned that Volkswagen had a massive data breach. 807,000 cars had their sensitive data up on the internet, and this was found through a month-long investigation following a tip-off run by hackers and the German publication Der Spiegel. The data was just sitting in an AWS database that wasn't quite public, but was basically misconfigured with keys available to be found for anyone who cared to look. This included data on cars from Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, and Skoda, which were built primarily on Volkswagen's MEB platform. The data includes a bunch of EV statistics including battery temperatures and error lights, but also location information of people using their cars, for example, which could also be tied to their user account emails and phone numbers, for example. And while the Audi brand, for example, at least anonymized location down to a 10-kilometer radius, as was specified in their own terms of service, the Volkswagen brand stored location down to 10 centimeters or a few inches. The presenter said that was actively breaking Volkswagen's very own terms of service, so there could be some really big lawsuits coming up soon. And of course, with precise location data plus emails and such, the journalists were able to track everyone from police people to government employees, people visiting brothels, and a lot more. Volkswagen at least fixed the issues when they were contacted, but they actually seem to have made 3 separate mistakes here. First, the cars collected more data than they needed and more than was in their own terms of service. Second, that data was put on the cloud without being encrypted. And third, access to that cloud was not properly managed. Ouch! But hey, if you thought it's just Volkswagen, worry not. Just this week, Tesla remotely unlocked the Cybertruck that exploded and also published data on what it was or wasn't doing, so I guess expectations on privacy and control over a vehicle that you actually bought might be, let's just say, shifting altogether. Okay, moving on to our release monitor, we have a lot of pre-CES products already, starting with Asus, Samsung, and MSI all announcing new 27-inch 4K OLED monitors with 240Hz refresh rates. They all use QD OLED panels, and Asus calls this their 4th generation OLED tech, which brings a bunch of new improvements. Interestingly, MSI is talking about a 5-layer tandem OLED panel, which should improve light efficiency by 30%. This is the only image that I could find which implies that they have 5 different blue diode layers stacked on top of each other, but I have no idea if that's actually true. Anyway, Samsung also updated their smart monitor M9 with OLED, in a sign that OLED really is becoming a lot more mainstream. And still with displays, HDMI 2.2 was announced as coming and will likely be part of both Nvidia's and AMD's new GPUs that are to be announced at CES. In more CES pre-announcements, LG showed off 4 new laptops, including an Intel Lunar Lake version of the 16-inch Gram Pro and also a separate 17-inch Arrow Lake version. And our final release of the week is the new Microsoft ergonomic keyboard that is designed by Microsoft but actually made by Incase. Kind of a fun collab, I guess. The keyboard is the only product that you can actually buy this week, so for that I put a product link in the description, while for the rest I just put some press releases if you want to learn more. Okay, and on to the brief, we are starting with a Geekbench leak that is showing a non-US based Galaxy S25 using a Snapdragon 8 Elite SoC. There is one more sign that Samsung might skip Exynos this year. And next, an Nvidia 5080 GPU got leaked in the form of a box from MSI. We can see that it will launch with 16 gigs of DDR7 memory with a 256-bit memory bus and also 3 display ports and an HDMI port. Okay. Meanwhile, we've just learned that Tesla had a pretty bad year in 2025 as the company's sales fell for the first time in over a decade. It's a very stark difference compared to the last few years of remarkably consistent and consistently massive growth. And meanwhile, also not a huge success is the Vision Pro, which Apple has now stopped production of due to inventory buildup. Apple can choose to restart production later, but it's not a great sign. But hey, Vivo said that that doesn't bother them because they've just teased a new mixed reality headset for 2025 as well, apparently putting 500 people to work on it. I really hope that all of these upcoming Chinese headsets are going to be running on Android XR or some kind of shared platform instead of each of them trying to do their own thing. And meanwhile, in hilariously transparent moves, Meta announced appointing the most prominent Republican on their team, called Joe Kaplan, to lead their policy team. This came shortly after Zuck actually donated to Trump earlier, so he's clearly trying to position himself with the president, who he himself formerly banned from his platforms. And since it's a new year, more works have also just entered the public domain. In the US at least, iconic IP such as the original Popeye and also the earliest versions of Tintin and Snowy are now available for anyone to use. Nice! Fun fact, I just learned today that Popeye wasn't actually eating spinach yet in its earliest versions, so that the spinach-eating Popeye is not in the public domain yet, but the stuff before that is. Next, in disappointing news, net neutrality got struck down by an appeals court ruling, meaning that the FCC's quest to make net neutrality a reality is looking real bad. But hey, now Verizon and AT&T can finally throttle your traffic from sites that they don't like as God intended. Woo! Freedom! And speaking of sort of legal things, you might have heard that Megalag exposed the browser extension Honey as basically stealing affiliate revenue from creators and also tricking users with subpar coupons. And well, just a few days ago, fellow Nebula creators Legal Eagle and Sam Demby, aka Wendover Productions, filed a lawsuit seeking monetary damages for potentially lost revenue, plus also an injunction to stop Honey from doing this in the future. It's pretty cool to see my fellow creator friends quoted in documents like these. From lawyers to logistics nerds to engineers and more, Nebula is the platform that many of the smartest educational creators online have built for ourselves, where we set our own rules. And the rules are pretty simple. You get more videos, often early access, no ads, and definitely no honey. Talking of Wendover, their fantastic game show Jetlag is now in season 12 on Nebula, giving you enough stuff to watch for many dark winter days. Or I, for example, also add an extra Nebula exclusive section at the end of every Friday checkout episode. If you're still looking for a New Year's resolution, then watching smarter stuff with fewer interruptions is a pretty good one in my opinion, and with my link down in the description you can also get 40% off. That is go.nebula.tv/TFC for just $3 a month with a yearly plan. Oh, and if you hate ongoing subscriptions, we even have a lifetime option. The link is in the description. Happy watching, Happy New Year, and I'll see you next Friday.